There is an endless possibility to the experiences that can be gained in the field of engineering. Learning to problem solve in a timely manner and learning the ins and outs of a system plays a very important role in being successful in this profession. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Reese, and in today's video, I am going to give you a real-world perspective of what you might expect to experience as a graduate engineer. First up, context. I have worked full-time in the field of engineering now for over 5 years. My background is mechanical engineering, which is what I studied at university. However, I have only worked as a mechanical engineer in a limited capacity. I have primarily been working as a systems engineer and a safety engineer across that 5-year period. I started to apply for full-time jobs in my final year of university, where I applied for about 20 to 30 roles that were being advertised at the time. I was invited to about between 8 and 10 interviews, and from those interviews and the applications that I had put out, I was able to land 3 job opportunities, where I accepted one and started a few months later. The program that I began working on was known as an acquisition project, which meant as a team, we had a certain time frame and a budget to basically give our customer a product that met their requirements and their needs. And that project was in the early stages of development when I joined the company. Now imagine this scenario. I am 22 years old. I've been hired as a graduate engineer and I have minimal experience working in teams of 100 people plus. I had no idea what the company processes were. I had no idea what I was really going to be doing from a technical perspective as well. All I knew was that I needed to be at the front door at 8 a.m. ready to kick off my induction. I was nervous, but I was also very excited because I knew full well that the company would need to take me through some type of basic training to get me up to speed, so the expectations of me performing from day one were most likely going to be relatively low, which is definitely the first thing worth mentioning as part of this video today, where if you are hired as a graduate, there will most likely be some type of onboarding and mentoring provided by the company for at least the first few months of you joining that company, and that could last anywhere up to 2 years depending on what the graduate program at that company looks like. You may also need specific types of security clearances to gain access to the work files before you can actually start looking at them, and you may even potentially need further qualifications as well that should be provided by your employer, because they wouldn't have hired you if there was an expectation to have that and you didn't have that as part of your application. So keeping that in mind as well, it might take a little bit of time before you really get going in that role. And generally, these types of additional trainings and qualifications, they're going to benefit you as an employee, because a company needs to spend money on their employees to get them up to speed, and that's going to make you more qualified to be able to do the job and solidify your position within the team. When starting out as a graduate, you will most likely have a lot of downtime throughout your work week, and this will be because the work you'll be contributing to will probably be minuscule in terms of what's being contributed for milestones and important deadlines. Another thing worth mentioning, and I'll be real with you here, Excel, Microsoft Excel is going to be in some capacity your best friend at work. I would highly recommend learning as much as possible about this tool and becoming as proficient as possible, as quickly as possible, because you are going to be using it on a daily basis. I personally have used it every single day since I began my engineering career. And I tie it back to those free pockets of time throughout my work week. This is where I took the opportunity to learn and upskill using Excel to really become quite proficient at using it, learning even just the most basic of formulas all the way up to learning VBA coding, because it's really important. It really is something that I want to put some emphasis on. It's worth taking the time to learn how to become excellent with it if you have the time, because it will do wonders for you when you start working. It'll make everything easier. It'll make automating your processes easier. It will make your work life a hell of a lot easier if it's organized and it's easy to understand and you have that understanding under your belt. Another recommendation, especially if you get employed with a big company, will be to put your hand up to do any types of trainings that are offered internally or externally at that company. I myself have been very fortunate to be able to travel all around Australia to do a number of training courses over the past 5 years. It's something that is a nice little additional perk that the company offers, but it's also very valuable to me because I'm upskilling, and it's also valuable to the company as well because I really solidify my position in the team. I really gain the skills and knowledge I need to be as proficient as possible at the job, and it's a win-win for both the company and their employees. Now, once a bit of time has passed as a graduate and you settle in and you start actually completing tasks that are being handed to you on a regular basis, I would expect that most of that work, if not all of it, would be combed over very carefully by someone who's allowed or permitted to review that work. In general, this is just good practice. In the early days, your work will most likely have gaps, errors, and issues that need to be amended or fixed before it's able to be signed off. Now, this one's going to be a bit of a negative. Early days as a graduate engineer, you're not going to have a lot of wiggle room or negotiating power for a work-life balance. That's something that I've experienced with a lot of my friends and myself as well who work in this field. When I began working, I was in the office 5 days a week and I was working a full-time 40-hour work week across those 5 days. Now, having gained some industrial experience and having that under my belt, I have been able to negotiate a work-life balance or work schedule that is more suitable to my personal needs. Currently, I'm working a 4-day condensed work week, which consists of 38 hours. And I only need to be on site when required for specific meetings or events that are taking place, which for the past 2 or so years now has been on average once per week. Anyway, let's go back to the positives for a second before we go back to the negatives. I mentioned earlier that you'll most likely be placed in a team where you'll have someone allocated to you as a mentor or potentially a buddy. If there is only one thing you take from this video, this is what it needs to be. Ask your buddy, your mentor, ask them questions. Be a sponge, absorb as much information as possible from what they are doing and how they are doing it. Learn everything that you possibly can from them. And then once you've learned everything in that space, go and ask other team members in different areas of whatever it is that they're doing the same. Go and sit next to them, find ways to get taught bits and pieces to really build this overarching skill set that you're trying to accumulate. This will do wonders for you as part of your development, but it will also open up opportunities to go and work in other areas within a project, within a company that might spark your interest. You might find that there are other places or other things within the company that you have a lot of interest in because what they're doing is super interesting. If you show that you're passionate, motivated, and excited to be working on those types of things, the company will most likely allow you to transfer into those types of teams to do that type of work. This will help you gain broader exposure to the field of engineering in general, but it will also, again, help you upskill very quickly to get rid of that graduate title as soon as you possibly can. Now for the juicy stuff. Let's talk salary because it's part of this process and it's definitely something people want to know. Depending on where you live in the world, what the current market is looking for in young engineers and the type of project you're working on, whether it's big, small, or the company you're working for, you will most likely be paid relatively low in terms of the pay brackets out of everyone working on that specific project. Just for context, I signed on as a graduate engineer for my first engineering job at $62,000. I was able to climb well over 6 figures within my first 3 years of working as an engineer to where I am now, very comfortable. However, that initial figure was relatively low compared to the others I was working with. I also want to emphasize that I really drove those conversations. I put the work in to make sure that I was on the path to be able to bump up my salary to that 6-figure number and higher because it was important to me and it's something that I really worked towards achieving, something that not everyone in companies do. Not everyone is comfortable taking action to get to that point. It really is worth it, in my opinion, getting to that point. But without taking that action, it's not just going to happen overnight. In most circumstances, people will just continue to get paid pretty abysmally for as long as they possibly can, because that's what a company wants to do. They want to pay you as little as possible to get the most out of you. So keep that in mind as well. There's a lot of effort that goes into bumping up quickly. It's not all about being the best worker possible. Additional perks that will definitely help you climb the ladder and be recognized as an effective team member within your place of work is definitely going to be proficient with Microsoft Office in general. I'm talking Word, Excel, PowerPoint, all of it. It's used very widely in the field of engineering. Get really good with them. Definitely improve your time management skills and your organization skills. These are skills that will carry you through anything with deadlines, anything with a bit of urgency put on them. You need these skills, otherwise you're not going to survive. It's going to become very stressful in that environment and you will get penalized if you're not an effective worker. And finally, definitely have an attitude that is I can do this. This might be different, it might be challenging, but I can learn how to do this and ask the questions you need to gain that broader experience to be able to become an effective team member. Now that I think about it, it might be worth making a video talking about the specific steps I took to become a graduate engineer to get that first job. So definitely make sure you subscribe to the channel to stay tuned if you are someone who's studying the field of engineering, especially within Australia, and want to learn how to get a job out of uni as an engineer. I guess the takeaway from today's video, even though it may be generic advice in general, is to learn as much as possible. Engage with your teammates. Make sure you are asking those questions and you are having good conversations, because they are people who will give you that knowledge, and make sure that you gain exposure to as much as possible to develop as early on as possible. The pay most likely will be shit as a young engineer, but that is the expectation, as you most likely will be average at your job for a period of time once you get hired. You could be the smartest person in the room, but if you don't have the skills and the intricacies of how a company's processes works, it's going to take time to get you up to speed. And finally, make sure that you have fun getting paid to learn and see the product that you might be building or servicing or maintaining come to life and contribute to society as a whole. It's probably the most exciting aspect of being a young engineer and gaining that broader experience of industry. And that pretty much is all I have for you today. They were the things that were on my mind at the time, and they were the things that I learned very early on in my days as a graduate engineer. Hopefully, the information I've provided to you today was somewhat helpful. If it was, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button down below. It really helps the channel grow, and I really appreciate the support. And I will leave you there. Have a good day, have a good week, and as always, I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.